Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Oh, good day, everyone. How you going? Thanks for joining us on the Smart Property Investment Show. Great to have you on board as we discover and navigate our way through this thing called property investment. If you're new to the show, welcome. I hope you enjoy. We pretty much just tell stories, what investors are up to, how they go about doing it. And often we actually get some people from within industry to come and have a chat on the show as well to tell us what they're up to and share their vision, their insights and their knowledge on how you can make better informed investment decisions. Today, a couple of guys in the studio, you might know them, Luke Harris and Matthew Bateman. They're from the Property Mentors. Guys, how you going?
Really good. Thanks for having us.
How are you?
So Luke, can you say something so we know who you are?
Luke here.
Okay, and then Matt.
Welcome.
Okay, they sort of sound the same but different. Welcome. This is the first time you're on the show, so I've been looking forward to having a chat with you guys. But it's not the first podcast you've done today, is it? Where else have you guys been?
Well, we've been around the traps. So we're up in Sydney. Our base is Melbourne, but obviously with the success of the book and we're getting a lot of media opportunities to go out and really, I guess, share the message of what the Property Mentors is all about and what we do and why we do it and having a lot of fun doing it.
Before we come in here, you mentioned that you're on Mark Boris's show, The Mentor. Good show. I don't mind a bit of cross-promotion. Go and tune into it. It's I enjoy the way that guy goes about his line of questioning, and he can often be hard and also be quite soft.
Absolutely.
What's the curliest question he asked you today, Luke?
The emotional side.
The emotional side of the
so-
investing, about more around the owner-occupier side of things. So why the owner-occupiers are buying emotionally rather than buying logically.
Okay, that's a pretty important theme, right? You know, a lot of people, property investors, get that wrong when they buy with a heart rather than I guess the dollars and cents and cents being CENTS and SENSE. But and I imagine that's what you guys are trying to do with this book that you've got. I've got a copy here in front of me. Let's Get Real. Discover the reasons most Australian property investors fail to get the results they desire, by Luke Harris, Matthew Bateman. Available in all good bookstores, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So I might give you guys a quick plug. A lot of property investment books out there. Why should I read this one?
Well, my personal belief, and again, I'm going to be biased here, but I guess maybe give you the background why we wrote the book. So we've been working with members for a long time, and a lot of them have asked us to put down on paper like what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. So when Luke and I first started the business, we sort of sat down and reconstructed the whole property investment space, because as long-term investors ourselves, I've been investing now for 20 years in property. Luke bought his first property at 20 years of age. You know, we've been and done pretty much all the strategies that are out there. Luke, how many renovations you done now?
13 renovations now.
Yeah, I'm up to number 8.
Started young.
Yeah, so he's done a few more than I have, but we've both done things like, you know, small scale subdivision, larger scale development. Our development pipeline at the moment sitting at about $150 million. So over the journey, we've learned a thing or two. And the people that asked us to write this book was really saying, what do we need to know to get the sort of results you guys are able to achieve and enjoy now? And when we sort of sat down and thought about it, we said, well, there's plenty of books on the shelves that'll talk probably about the how-to of investing. So, you know, how to do property research or due diligence. Now, I would argue that some of those books are great, some of them are average, and some of them are actually, you know, probably sending you down the wrong path. There's no shortage of information on the planet. We didn't want to certainly bog down the internet and everything else that's out there with more information just for information's sake. So we said, what's stopping investors from really getting the types of results that they want to achieve? Luke, you might want to explain that a little bit more about, you know, the biggest, I guess, planning folly that most people go through.
Yeah, look, it's come all through our own experience in investing ourselves, is that we realised that we'd been investing for a number of years and getting a particular result, hadn't got good or bad results as such. I made money in property, Matt made money in property, but most investors haven't actually identified why they're investing in the first place. Everybody wants to make money, and the common question, you know, we ask, what are you trying to achieve through your property investing? Most people put their hand up and say they want 10 properties in 10 years with $100,000 passive income. Yeah. And so that's the standard default response. So what we worked out is that most investors haven't actually identified specifically what they're trying to achieve for their own circumstances. So everyone's got different goals. Everyone's getting up and going to work every day, and they're out there investing for a particular reason. And most adults have never actually taken the time to sit down and write down exactly what they're trying to achieve. So when we wrote the book, it was all about, what does each individual investor want, rather than trying to fit everybody into a cookie cutter type system. And let's work backwards from the end point B position they're trying to achieve right back to where you're at today.
Okay. And one of the objectives of today's podcast, I want to drill down into some of the content of the book. But before we get there, what's your story? How did you guys end up writing a book together and I imagine being in business together. How did that happen?
Look, I guess let's start at the beginning. I'm from Sydney originally, so even though I've been in Melbourne for the last 15 odd years, grew up here in the southern suburbs of Sydney, went to a pretty typical public school for Sydney. Found the actual academic side of school not too challenging, so I thought, better use my brain. I went and did a couple of university degrees, ended up graduating as a chiropractor, went out and started running health and wellness businesses, started generating some profit from those businesses, and as most people do, you go, well, what do I do next? I invest. And unfortunately, I learned a few hard lessons early on in my investment career. I probably sucked as an investor because despite having obviously multiple degrees and being, let's call it, educated, what I wasn't was educated in the property space. And so I had to, and not just property, I threw money at shares. I went into exploratory gold mining, multi-level marketing businesses, anything shiny, bright, promises of,
You were that guy, were you?
I was that guy. So it took me a while to learn, through the school of hard knocks that if you want to do something and do it right, you've got to have a plan. And that was really, after a number of years of losing money and time, I actually sat down and said, you've got to do something different. And what is that difference? And so I made a really big commitment to my education. So I spent over the last 20 years, I've spent in excess of probably $250,000 on, reading other people's books and DVD courses. Back in the day, they were videotapes and, even cassette tapes. I've still got that stuff in storage somewhere. I ended up buying a shipping container to put all the stuff in because I've spent a lot of money and a lot of time, attending events and trying to really educate myself on in these areas and become, I guess, an expert and a specialist to be able to present the information we present to you today. Obviously, along that journey, got to a point where I decided to take the business profits and reinvest them into real estate. And was fortunate that, obviously property has been a pretty forgiving mistress, largely. Haven't lost a huge amount in property. I've lost some money chasing, again, shiny, get-rich-quick type schemes in property. But the properties that I've just bought that are good quality assets in good areas with good growth prospects have done really well. Helped me build a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Got to the stage where my businesses were going well and, I sold them off and, did what most people do. You get to that nirvana called retirement and then you find there's only so much playing golf and sitting on the beach you can do before your brain gets engaged again. You want to do something. And I guess part of this book also is really giving back to the community in that, you can go out and try and do what I did and learn all the lessons yourself and, take the time and spend the money to do it. Or you can leverage off people who've already gone out and done it and are happy to come back and share what they've done and what they've learned. And really that, for me, the emotional rewards of helping other people get their own success on track and get their own portfolios being built is really what drives us at the moment.
So, and when did your two paths collide then? How did that happen?
Yeah, look, my background in the electronic security industry, I left school and started my first business at 19, bought my first property at 20, and then I built my portfolio during my 20s. So I did renovations and subdivisions and unit developments and went through this process that I got to 30 where I sold my second business, which was in Melbourne. I grew up in Perth and moved to Melbourne and sold the business, sold a property. And then during this 18-month mini retirement that I had, again, sitting on the beach, traveling the world, went to Europe, went to South America, came back from that and met Matt. And we actually had a lot in common. We'd been through the same sort of journey going, I'm a little bit younger than Matty, but been through the same sort of journey going out there and investing in property, had really good results. But we got chatting about the types of events and the books and the seminars and all the things that are out there that investors can assess to try and make their financial decisions. And we realised that our journeys had been pretty similar in that there wasn't anybody really out there to hold your hand through the entire journey. There were people that would teach you renovation strategies and they're good at what they do. People that will teach you how to do a development. There's people who will teach you how to do various components of property investing. And I remember reading all of the books. I remember all of the books when I was 16, 17 and reading Robert Kiyosaki and all of these things. But what we realised was there was nobody really to talk about the Australian property market and how to actually set out a plan. And so what we did is we actually really sat down and got along really well and stripped back the entire property industry and worked out what works in the industry for the end buyer, for the investor, and what works really well for the sales companies that are on the other side making huge commissions. And we realised that there's a win-win situation that can be arranged in the middle there, and that's how we really put the business together, is that not all businesses have to be a win-lose. Any good business is a win-win. And so that's where we set up the Property Mentors, really to get that win-win relationship happening so that the investor gets a win and the business gets a win as well.
So the question then is, what do you guys do? What business are you in? Is it property investment, or you're in a different sort of business?
That's actually a good question. I would argue no, we're probably not in property investment. Property is just the vehicle. So what we're in is the business probably of changing lives. And the way we do it is that we've got a lot of skill and experience and networks and resources in the property space. So we use that as one of our primary vehicles, primary assets to get the result. Now, ultimately, the way we look at it is that every single person that we work with has got some sort of dream, goal, or vision for their life, and they're either moving towards that and are going to achieve that, or they're not moving towards it and they may never achieve it. But if we can come on board and partner up with them and share that journey with them, then hopefully we can help them get there safer, faster, and more predictably than if they go out and try and recreate the wheel, if you like, and try and learn everything we've already learned. It's really just about taking that journey with us, and the value proposition for our business is, if you can't see that you can get a bigger win working with us than working on your own, then don't work with us. We're okay with that.
So if you had to crystallise in a sentence or so your view of property, how you see property, the strategy someone needs to take in order to be successful at creating wealth through property, what is it?
I guess the strategy for getting the best results in property is to get a really good understanding of your point A position, which is where you're at right now, and how you got there. See, a lot of people just get some money together through equity or whatever it might be, and they go out and they start investing. If you've got a really good understanding of how you handle money and how you got to this position, how did you end up with $30,000 in credit card debt? How did you end up paying, fixing your interest rates when they were 8%? How did you get to this position where you're at right now? And when you get a clear understanding of your point A position and you work out your point B position, what are you actually trying to invest for? Whether it's for retirement, or whether it's just to get a cleaner in once a week, or whether it's to have a new car or a holiday, whatever it might be. Once you've got a clear understanding of your point B position, then you can bridge the gap between your point A and your point B position. But most investors don't take the time to really understand where they're at right now and how they even got there. So they might get some equity, or they might come into an inheritance or whatever it might be, and they go out there in the marketplace and they start looking at property. And we go to barbecues and they say, where's the best place to invest, Luke? Where's the best place to invest?
I imagine there's a bit of a journey for you guys putting this book together, and you work together, so you know each other well. Is there anywhere you fundamentally disagree when it comes to property?
Not yet.
Not really.
Not yet.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
I think-
one of the things that's really powerful is that Luke and I are very different people. We're not the odd couple, but we've got different skill sets, and I think I've been through a number of business relationships, and I've had good ones, bad ones, and average ones. The reason I like working with Luke is that we complement each other. So the skills and things that he does, I don't necessarily have those skills or the desires to want to do those, and vice versa. And we've got enormous trust in each other that, we can rely on each other to do those components of the business. Because this is the thing, as an individual property investor, do you really have the time and resources to go and do everything yourself? Can you become an accountant, financial planner, a mortgage broker, a quantity surveyor, a property manager? Do you have time and the energy and even the desire to want to go and learn to become an expert in all those areas? Or at some point, are you going to use the power of other people's experience and time and money to actually get the result that you want? And that's really where we work as a business team, I think, is that, we complement each other brilliantly.
And how long have you guys been doing this?
Started the business 2014.
Okay.
How long we've been doing this, as in
Like
what we do now?
Yeah.
Probably, I would say, since I was 20, when I bought my first property, I was talking to all my mates in Perth. Everyone, you need to buy a property, you need to buy a property. And this is when Perth prices, 4-bedroom house near the beach was $157,000, which was my first property. I've been doing this my whole life, really, to help people. If you look back at the even earlier years when I came home from school one day and I was tearing up the bathroom. Mum and Dad were at work and I was tearing up the bathroom doing my first renovation as a 12-year-old because I didn't like the blue tiles. Mum and Dad loved that story. We finally did the renovation a few years later when they had the money to do it. But I guess property's always been in my blood and probably always will be. And I think the power for helping friends and family during my 20s to get into their property. I've got a friend in Perth. One of their goals was just to pay off their own home and got them into a couple of properties, and they sold them now. But through that process, they paid off their mortgage in their early 30s.
And it all goes down to goal setting and all that sort of stuff, which I imagine you guys work with. But do you think you need to be a sophisticated investor, have a large portfolio in order to help other people be good at doing it?
I'd say it's an advantage to at least have the runs on the board. It's like any coaching role. Do you need to have been a star athlete to be able to coach a star athlete yourself? Look, chances are it's not an absolute requirement, but obviously it helps.
But I guess the question then is, you need to have some scar tissue, right? Yeah. Like as an investor to know.
Look, I think you need some experience. And I think you need some runs on the board, and you need to have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of the industry from both sides of the fence. And that's what we've done. And as Luke mentioned earlier, when we started the business, because we didn't have to work, we said, well, we enjoy what we're doing, and we're both pretty much doing parallel things. We're both on the same rail track, just he's on the left one, I'm on the right one. We're both helping friends and family to move into the space. Why don't we do it as a business? But if we're going to do it as a business, what should the business look like? And that's really where we stripped it all back and started from the ground up, put the things in there that we thought were appropriate. So again, we asked the question, if we were starting out again, what sort of support and guidance would we want to have access to, and what sort of opportunities would we want to have access to? And you mentioned sophisticated investors. Obviously, sophisticated investors by and large get access to some opportunities that individual investors may never see. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to bring, let's call it sophisticated type strategies to our audience and to our members so that they can get better results. And as I said, everything we do, we say, can we do it safer? Can we do it faster? And can we do it more predictably? And that sort of, I guess, is the fundamental, focus for the business moving forward.
It's a challenging industry, property investment, because it's not really regulated on one hand, and you talk about the good, bad, the ugly, and there's a lot of bad and ugly in this property investment space, right? What's your view on that? Is it more good than bad and ugly, or is this one for you, Luke?
Yeah, look, we refer to that in the book.
There you go. I haven't read the book yet.
That's right. I know you've only had it an hour, so we'll forgive you for that.
Yeah.
But we've actually put a section in the book about sharks and cowboys.
Okay.
Because we've actually been there, and so we thought, who are the good guys and the bad guys out there? And there's plenty of good people out there in the property investment space. Don't get us wrong, but we've seen the sharks and the cowboys out there, and the sharks are circling around looking for somebody that's got some money ready to invest, and they'll be able to bite when they feel it suits them to get a quick sale and a quick commission. And then there's obviously the cowboys who are blatantly going out there flogging anything and everything, and we've seen a lot of those in the newspapers in the last few years. If you scroll back to early 2000s, there was quite a few more of them, a few names that we won't mention, but the sharks and cowboys are really out there, and they come and go. In any property cycle, you'll see them come and go.
How do you spot them then? Like, what's the key to spotting the bad guys?
I guess it's the typical get-rich-quick scheme. You'll make big riches, and here's big returns, and here's a huge percentage returns. And I think the main thing is they have events that seminars and events. A lot of these people run these big not high pressure necessarily, but they're hyped up events. People standing on chairs and patting each other on the back and jumping off the. We've seen all of that stuff. And I as an early teenager and early 20s, I got excited about that stuff. I thought, wow, this is really.
Is that
cool.
where you go to the back of the room and sign up for?
Rush to the back of the room if you don't. If you $5,000 off for the first 10 people. And that's where the sharks and the cowboys, terminology really came from. So we've got a nice image in there of a cowboy riding a shark in the book. But really, for us, as long-term property investors ourselves, when we set up the Property Mentors business, our focus and our view for this business is to create a long-term relationship with our members. And it's not for us to be getting in and making a quick buck and getting out. We've already made money in property, and we continue to do so. We want to be able to share that with each of our members. The more members we have in our system, the better we can negotiate and the bigger deals that we can put together for everybody involved. So it is a true win-win, and that's, as Matt mentioned before, if people can't see the win-win in what we do, don't work with us.
Here we go. Page 181. There's a cowboy riding a shark. Get rich quick. Mentor tip. There are countless property seminars, books, home study courses, and marketing companies posing as investment businesses. In the 21st century, there are a lot of scams that you need to be careful of. Just Google and find out. Fair point. So let's look at some of this stuff in the book. Looking at the contents page, I've underlined a couple of things. This big thing about why you're talking about really early on. Is that like the why you invest in property, or why you're even thinking about this? What's the why?
Ultimately, the why is your juice. The why is going to give you your motivation. See, right now, everyone that's listening to this, they got up this morning. But was there a reason they got up? Was it really that they got up excited about the day and all the prospects that the day has, or did they just get up and they're just going through the motions? They're shaving, the same way. They start on the right and they finish on the left, and then they have breakfast and they have the same breakfast, and they hop in the car and they drive the same distance to work, and they're doing all the same things day in, day out. Now, that's fine as long as they understand that there's a reason that they're doing it. But most people are going through life with what I call the blinkers on, and they're just performing. Whereas what we're saying is if you can get clear as to why you're doing something, and you can really identify the emotional factors that are going to give you that juju juice or that extra motivation, you're going to be more excited, you're going to get more done, you're going to get better results. And so for us, it's really about focusing on why you're doing all of this in the first place. Because if we can maintain a focus on the why, then all of the stuff that comes later, the property selection, the due diligence and the research and all the, let's call it, work that you have to do, it's going to be much easier to go through that process if you've got a clear target as to what you're aiming for.
So there's all front end stuff, and then you've got, after sort of working out what your why is, and interesting choice of word, you've got rediscovering your why rather than discovering your why. So do most people sort of know what they're doing and they've got to re-sort it out? Or?
Yeah, look, I guess if you know anyone that's got kids, you talk to the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they want to be a fireman or want to be an astronaut, and everyone's got big goals and dreams when they're a kid, because there's no limits on what they can do. And then as you get older and you become into your high school years and you get beaten up a few times or whatever happens in you start bringing your world a little bit smaller. And as you get into your first job and your boss yells at you, and you start minimizing your goals because you think, I can't do that. And I think rediscovering it is actually really looking at the big picture again, getting in the helicopter, doing the helicopter view, looking back down at your life and saying, why am I actually here? We're on this planet one time. Why am I actually here in the first place? And what do I really want to do with my life? Because what happens, and I realised this very quickly because I'm 37 now, and I realised very quickly when I turned 30, my 20s are gone.
Yeah.
And very quickly my 30s are going to be gone, very quickly your 40s, and you don't get them back. And I think as you start seeing your family get older, and my family's over in WA, mum and dad, so I don't see them as often. Every time you see them, you think, wow, they're getting a little bit older. And you just realise that your time you can't get back. You can always make more money, but you can't get the time back. Yeah. So rather than wait until you're 67 and look in your account and see if you've got enough money to retire, start planning for it now. The more you can plan for it, the more you can get ahead in the younger years, the more compounding growth that you can get for your future.
And Matt, I should have asked you, you're okay with Matt? Or is Matthew better? Is he precious, Luke?
No, not overly precious. No. I've called him worse.
And I'm just, and I'll go through the content here because it's quite interesting. So chapter 5 here, what type of investor are you? And I've spoken about this before on the Smart Property Investment Show. Everyone's different, but you've, and I'm just skimming here, but you framed this as the wannabe investor, and everyone knows them. The frugal investor, that could be me. The I'll try everything at the Buffett investor, yep. The impatient investor, lots of them. The burnt or heavily singed investor, lots of them out there. The cynical investor, the been there, done that investor, the aha investor, and the armchair investor. There's a lot of investors there. Yeah, they're all a bit sort of negative. There's not a lot of positivity in there.
No, there's a couple of positives there towards the end. So basically what we're doing is going through a list of what we have seen typically over a long period of time working with thousands of investors. And really, this is a general classification. And when you read this, you'll see parts of yourself maybe in one or two or three of the descriptions. And it's not there to try and generalize everyone. It's just to try and bring focus and awareness to what type of investor you are now. And then more importantly, what type of investor do you actually want to become? And
it's all about mindset, right? And I know you get into that into the second part of the book, but you've really loaded the front end in being quite a soul-searching type of thing. So to actually be in tune with who you are and why you're doing stuff, and
absolutely,
and how you, and I hard mark myself quite a lot all the time. I'm a very reflective type in that way, and I don't think a lot of people do that. So it looks like you've gone essentially 3 parts of the book. The first 2 parts are about getting your head sorted out, and the last bit's about, okay, now you get into the property bit. Yeah. So do you think it's normally couple for the horse? That's how most people go into stuff, right? And then they get back and they might have a big portfolio and go, oh, okay, I'll start thinking about this a little bit more philosophical.
Yeah. I think it's not even that they need to build a big portfolio to start thinking about it. For what we've seen historically, classic example is this. You go to a barbecue and they say, what do? You meet someone for the first time at a dinner. What do you guys do? The question always comes up. Do? So what I say is I just say, I help other people make bucket loads of money in the property investment space.
That sounds like an elevator pitch, right?
Well, it's short and sweet. And what it does is it opens up a question, because normally the very next question is, because they're either going to be really interested in property investing or they're not. So it either opens a conversation or it shuts it down. Yeah. If they're open, it says the very next question we normally always get is, So where should I be buying next?
Where's the next hot spot?
Yeah. And look, it's
Blame
not
the media for that. That's what they talk about.
Well, it's not a bad question. It's just for us, it's a process and a decision that should come a little bit later down the track. So the first question we'll ask is, well, why are you investing in the first place? What's the goal of your investments? Because property is just a vehicle, and we'll say this again and again. Property is just a vehicle. It's one asset class amongst others. You've got shares, you've got gold, rare art, coins, collectibles, Bitcoin if you want to invest in that sort of stuff. There's plenty of different ways to generate wealth in your life. What we try and do is take something that's relatively complex in terms of obviously all the macroeconomic stuff. You're looking at interest rates, inflation and exchange rates and all that sort of stuff. But we try and make what's complex and try and bring it back to, I think it was Einstein that said, if you can't explain it to a kindergarten student, you can't, you don't know it yourself. So trying to bring wealth creation back to a really basic level. And for us, it's this: why are you investing? What's the long-term outcome you're trying to achieve? And then it's a matter of finding the opportunities that will help you best fit that outcome. And that's why the where question is important, but we start with the why, the how, the when, because you may not be ready to invest. Just because you've got some dollars in your pocket, we don't recommend you go and just throw them at the first property you see.
And this is the name of the book came out through obviously the first few years of running our business and working with people. We've spoken to literally thousands of people to come up with this book. And the title of the book, Let's Get Real, is really around a combination of all of those conversations where a lot of people, and myself included, and a lot of people, friends and family, were a little bit delusional, really, drifting through life and investing in this and that and kind of hoping it works, going to work every day and paying the bills, but not actually having a clear plan. When we titled the book Let's Get Real, it was about to get the real results that you're after and to get long-term sustainable wealth, you need to get real with your situation and have a real understanding of what you're trying to achieve. And once you've got that clarity, the decisions that you make in your investing become so much clearer. And there's a lot of people, myself included, was going out there. I was doing renovations because I was reading, everything in the newspapers. I was reading books and magazines and going to seminars and reading all the things out there. And I was trying to find out what's going to work for me. Because everyone said, I was reading the Steve McKnight book, 0 to 130 properties. I thought, well, if he can get 130, surely I can get 10 or 20. It's only 40 grand each, so I could just go and get as many as I could. Yeah. But I was going out there and doing what a lot of people do, is they're looking for the silver bullet that's going to help them build wealth. And if most investors just bought one property every 5 or 10 years, starting in your 20s, buy another one in your 30s, another one in your 40s, and just stuck to that plan, most people would be retiring extremely well. Comfortably.
And you said the genesis of this book is working with people, right? And use a sporting analogy. We sort of touched on one beforehand. There's a lot of really exceptional sports people around there, but they're not very coachable, right? They might be great and talented and stuff, but they might be a bit of a knob and don't want to take advice and all that sort of stuff. And I imagine you guys see this as well. So, we talk about being reflective and understanding the way that you're wired and the way you work, and the first couple of chapters in your book deals with that. But how can you, as a property investor, how can you be coachable? How can you be able to change the way you do stuff based on the information that you receive?
It's an interesting question. I think the main thing as a property investor, you've got to be understanding of the fact that you don't know everything. You don't know what you don't know. And as Matt alluded to before, is that I'm not an expert in finance. I know enough about finance so that I can have a really good conversation with my mortgage broker. I'm not an accounting expert, and I don't want to be, but I know enough to talk to my accountant about structures and tax planning and things like that. So I think the main thing as a property investor, if you want to get high level results, you're going to have to get your education up to a high level. If you want your property investing to be a hobby, by all means, go and do a renovation every couple of years and treat it as a hobby, but you'll get the results of somebody that's running a hobby. So to step up to the next level, you need to increase your education and get an expert team around you. And
look, I mean, it's a good analogy, sports, because, I mean, my background as a chiropractor, I actually went through 3 different Olympic campaigns, worked one-on-one with a whole range of Australia's best athletes in the pool and on the rugby field and cricket and boxing and a whole range of sports, so rowing, etc. So I know a thing or two also about elite level performance and the mindset that's behind elite level performance. And it doesn't matter whether it's sport, whether it's business, whether it's health, whether it's relationships. At the end of the day, if you want to get to the top echelons or to the top levels in any area, it's a conscious decision. Sure, you want to have some motivation. Sure, you want to have some bare bones talent. But then, you do want to be coachable. You want to put your hand up and say, hey, this is where I want to go. And you want to have as many people whose shoulders you can stand on to get there sooner. Like that's what great sports people do. They don't, it's not one person. Sure, they might be ultimately responsible for, diving into the pool and doing the 50-meter splash, but ultimately behind them, there's a whole raft of people. There's the Australian Institute of Sport, state level institutes of sports. There's, coaches that they've had that have helped them through their journey from, junior level all the way through to senior. There's support staff. There's, chiropractors, physios, strength and conditioning coaches. There's a huge team that sits behind anybody that's performing at a high level. And I mean, you can't perform at the highest level and just say, I can do it all on my own.
Oh, I completely agree with that. And do you have a lot of people that connecting with you guys, you just go, I don't want to deal with this person. They're just not coachable, to use that term?
I wouldn't say a lot of people.
But it happens.
From time to time, there is people out there that say, I want to do it all on my own. And we let them. Yeah. We're still going to be here. And I think that's the cool thing about what we do is that Matt and I are making money in property anyway.
So you guys are making money as property investors yourself.
Well, that's our gig. Like in terms of, we've got a pretty good pipeline at the moment. We've got about 150 million under development that we're controlling. We've got multi-million-dollar portfolios. We don't have to do this. We do this by choice. And we always say that everything we do, any communication we have, even relationships with you, it's got to be a win-win. So if it's not a win-win, so we've got a client who comes in and is very demanding, or won't follow our guidance, and they're going to do everything the opposite to what we recommend. Well, clearly that relationship's not going to be a win, because it's not a win for us to work with somebody who doesn't want to get the type of results that we're able to help them get. So ultimately, at some stage, we do lovingly say we're not the company for you, and good luck with your journey, and we'll focus on the people that genuinely A, want our help, and B, need our help to get the results they want.
Everyone will be going, all right, this all sounds really good. All right, hopefully they might go and read your book, buy it, I guess.
Well, let's hope so.
but they'll be going, all right, that all sounds good. All right, well, but they'll go, all right, where are you guys? Where are you guys buying at the moment? What sort of stuff is attractive to you as property investors right now? Matt?
All right, so I'll ask you the question, are we buying for capital growth or cash flow?
Capital growth.
Okay, so if I'm looking at...
And that's an important question.
Yeah, and that's one of the first questions we're going to ask. So then the next question I'd be probably looking at is I'd be saying, okay, so if we're looking at property, are you buying for the short term or long term? So is this a quick flip, or are you buying for the next 20, 30, 40 years?
As long as it's a buy and hold strategy and it's capital growth.
Okay. So at the end of the day, do you want to pay full retail, or do you want to get some wholesale discounts in your buying?
I want the best property I can buy for as cheap, the cheapest price I can get it for.
Okay. So here's the thing. A moment ago, you asked me where I should buy. Now what we've just done is we've redirected the conversation to actually working out a strategy for what it is. So from that conversation that we've had, 3 questions, we've worked out you want to buy for the long term, you want to buy for maximum capital growth, but you also want to get a pretty good deal on the way into this, so that you're locking in some of your profits up front.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, the next sort of question I'd ask is, okay, what sort of capacity do you have to take that purchase? So are we talking about a $500,000 investment, $1 million investment, a $5 million investment? So we need to get a bit more, I guess, parameter around what we do before we start talking about areas. Now,
and I'm happy, and I'm really happy that you've actually gone down that approach. You're answering that because... And we say it all the time on the Smart Property Investor Show, everyone's circumstance is different.
Absolutely.
The right property for me is the different property for you is a different property for you.
And here's the thing, a lot of investors sit on the sideline waiting for the perfect property to present themselves. And the problem with that is that you're missing out on really good opportunities because you're waiting for the perfect one. And chances are you're not going to find the perfect one.
I've been looking, still haven't found one 20 years later.
Otherwise, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is I teach people as well, is that through your investing career, if you're building a multi-million-dollar portfolio, or even if you're getting 2 or 3 properties, at the end of the day, any property in your portfolio is just one property. And if you're building wealth for the long term, and you look back in your retirement years and you're looking back at your property portfolio and you've never sold anything, then you go, do you know what? That decision that I was stressed about 25 years ago, it's less relevant now, because it's putting income in my pocket every week.
And I might ask another question, because we're up here in Sydney, and I'd ask you a question. If I could find you a property in Sydney today at 1987 prices.
1987 prices.
Yeah, so if I could find you a property in Sydney at 1987 prices, would you want me to present that to you? Would you be more than confident to probably put that into your portfolio?
You would think so, yeah.
And does it matter which suburb it's in?
No, it doesn't matter which suburb it is.
So here's the thing, like at the end of the day, and again, property obviously has a long-term historical performance. It's got a lot of long-term stability. There's strong population growth, low interest rates. So there's a lot of macro factors to suggest that property will continue to perform in the longer term. So what we try and do is de-emphasize the actual property, because that's just the vehicle that's going to help you to get to where you want. And what we really want to emphasize is, who are you as an investor? What are you trying to achieve? And can we bring opportunities to the table that will actually help you to get there safer, faster, and more predictably?
So going back to the, I can't remember what page it was, a cowboy riding a shark. If you go and see someone and you go, I want to be a property investor, go, great, I've got this property here, you can buy it today. Is that one of them?
It's hard to say because
the way that works, if you're at a seminar and they start showing you floor plans and they show you the theatre room and they show you the amazing swimming pool and you're seeing all of these things, and then all of a sudden there's a finance guy at the back of the room, and then all of a sudden at the other side of the room there's a girl up there with a clipboard ready to sign you up and a credit card machine, you should walk out of that.
Let's finish with that. That's sage advice, I reckon. But that's all good. No, thanks for sharing that, guys. So you're Melbourne-based, eh? Is that right? Yeah. Keep in touch. Let us know how you're getting on. I know you're sort of out there doing a bit of media now. Where can you get your book? I don't normally do a plug, but
so
it's just
DMX, Amazon.
It's in all the bookstores around the country.
Airport bookshops.
I've only flicked through it, so I remember me not to have read it, but I'll give it a read through. It looks like one of those books that you can pick up and put down, right? Which is what you need. You don't need to read all at once.
Only put it down when you're finished reading.
Yeah.
Look, it's designed to be an easy read, but it's also designed to be a challenging read. Easy in that the chapters are broken up in such a way that it makes sense, hopefully, for you to follow, but also challenging in that we are going to ask the tough questions of you as an investor. So it's not just, here's a recipe and a formula to follow and you get the result. It's saying, well, why are we baking in the first place, before we even start talking about recipes?
Good. All right. Nice one. That's Luke Harris and Matthew Bateman. They're from the Property Mentors, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Remember to check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au if you're not yet subscribing to our morning market intelligence newsletter, so you're the first to know what's going on in property. smartpropertyinvestment.com.au/subscribe. And you can follow us on social media if that's where you like to get your information, if you're not an email person. We're out there all the time. Remember to keep those reviews coming on iTunes as well, or wherever you're listening to it. The team here appreciate them. Any comments, any questions, email the team, editor@smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, and we'll get back to you. We do Q&A sessions all the time as well, so we'll answer them on there. And any questions for either Luke or Matthew, happy to pass them on as well. We'll be back again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.